In the quiet suburban town of Frederick, Colorado, nestled against the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains, the Watts family seemed to live a picture-perfect life. Chris and Shanann Watts lived in a well-kept home on Saratoga Trail with their two beautiful daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste. Shanann, a vibrant and social woman, was 15 weeks pregnant with a baby boy they had already named Nico. Her Facebook was filled with videos of smiling family moments, sweet declarations of love for her husband, and celebrations of milestones with her girls. To the outside world, they appeared to be a model family. They met in 2010, and after a courtship that began on Facebook, they married in 2012. Shanann, a determined woman who had battled lupus and other health challenges, was drawn to Chris's calm demeanor. He seemed quiet, supportive, and dependable, the kind of man who would stand by her side no matter what. As their family grew, so did Shanann's presence on social media. She thrived as a sales representative for a multi-level marketing company called Thrive, often posting videos that promoted the health and lifestyle benefits of her products. Chris, though more reserved, appeared in many of her videos, smiling, hugging their daughters, or quietly standing by. But by the summer of 2018, cracks were forming in the Watts marriage. Chris, once affectionate and attentive, had grown distant. He began working out obsessively, changing his eating habits, and paying more attention to his appearance. Unknowns to Shanann, Chris was having an affair with a coworker named Nicole Kessinger, who later told investigators that Chris had claimed he was in the process of separating from his wife, painting himself as a victim of a loveless marriage. Nicole had no idea that she was being pulled into a dark web of lies and impending violence. In June and July of 2018, Shanann spent time in North Carolina with the girls, visiting family. Chris stayed behind, claiming work obligations. During those weeks apart, Shanann noticed Chris growing colder and less responsive. When she returned home in August, she began to suspect something was seriously wrong. She confided in friends via text that she believed Chris was no longer interested in her and might be cheating. Still, she hoped they could save the marriage. On August 13, 2018, Shanann returned home from a business trip to Arizona just after 2 a.m., driven from the airport by a friend. That would be the last time anyone saw her alive. That morning, Shanann's friend and colleague grew concerned when Shanann missed a doctor's appointment and failed to respond to calls and messages. She drove to the Watts residence, knocked, rang the doorbell, and called the police when no one answered. Officers arrived and, with the help of Chris, who had returned home from work, entered the house. Shanann's purse, phone, medications, and car were still at the house. Her shoes were by the door. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle. The girls' beds were left unmade, their blankets missing, as if they had been pulled from their beds. Shanann and the girls were gone, as though they had vanished or run away. Initially, Chris claimed to have no idea where his wife and daughters were. He suggested that Shanann might have taken the girls and left in distress after an emotional conversation about separating. However, this story didn't sit right with investigators. Chris appeared strangely calm, and there were inconsistencies in his demeanor, including his lack of emotion, unusual body language, and the forced nature of his statements. Meanwhile, media outlets picked up the story, and Chris appeared on local news, pleading for his family's safe return. Standing on his front porch, wearing a t-shirt and shorts, he expressed his desire for his family's return. Behind the scenes, the investigation accelerated. Shanann's phone data, home surveillance footage, and interviews with friends began to chip away at Chris's account. A neighbor's surveillance camera showed Chris backing his truck into the driveway early that morning and making several unusual trips to and from the house. For someone who claimed he didn't know what happened, Chris appeared to be hiding something. On August 15, 2 days after Shanann was reported missing, Chris failed a polygraph test. When confronted with the results and told to come clean, he broke. But instead of telling the full truth, he claimed that he had seen Shanann strangling their daughters and that he killed her in a fit of rage. It was a lie, but it marked the beginning of the unraveling. That same day, Chris finally led investigators to an oil site owned by his employer, Anadarko Petroleum, approximately 45 minutes away. There, in a desolate field bathed in the Colorado sun, they discovered Shanann's body buried in a shallow grave. Nearby, they found the bodies of Bella and Celeste, submerged in separate crude oil tanks. Autopsies later revealed that Shanann had been strangled to death. Bella and Celeste had been smothered, likely with a blanket. Tragically, Bella fought back, her bruised tongue and her injuries suggesting she struggled against her father in her final moments. In November 2018, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to all 9 charges, including first-degree murder of his pregnant wife and 2 daughters. In exchange for his guilty plea, prosecutors agreed not to seek the death penalty. During sentencing, Shanann's family delivered heart-wrenching victim impact statements describing the pain, betrayal, and grief they now lived with. The judge called it perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime he had ever presided over. Chris was sentenced to 5 life terms without the possibility of parole, plus 84 more years for other charges. Later, in a chilling interview from prison, Chris confessed the full, unfiltered truth. He had strangled Shanann in their bedroom after she confronted him about their affair. Bella had walked in and asked what was wrong. He loaded Shannon's body into his truck, placed his daughters in the back seat, and drove them to the oil site, alive. There, after burying Shanann, he smothered Celeste with a blanket. Bella, terrified, asked him what was happening. She reportedly screamed, "Daddy, no!" and asked if the same thing was going to happen to her as Cece. Then he killed her too. In December 2018, just months after the horrific murders that shook the nation, Shanann Watts' parents sat down for their first interview since losing their daughter and granddaughters. It was an emotional appearance on the ABC News series 2020, where they shared their grief, their memories, and the deep pain of coming to terms with what had happened. The media attention continued to swirl. Later that month, Dr. Phil dedicated an entire episode to the case. He brought together 4 experts. Together, they dissected Watts's secret life, motives, and psychological profile, painting a disturbing picture of the man behind the murders. More than 2 years later, in June 2021, the story took another dark turn. Inside Edition revealed the contents of a series of letters Chris Watts had sent to a pen pal from prison. In these disturbing written confessions, Watts mentioned that he had secretly given Shanann OxyContin, hoping to end her pregnancy because he believed it would make it easier to be with his girlfriend. Even more chilling, Watts additionally revealed that before the final act of violence, he had tried to smother his young daughters in their beds, but failed, only to kill them later that same morning. The Chris Watts case remains haunting because it shattered the illusion of safety at home. A man who seemed like a devoted father and husband was, in reality, a calculated murderer. His crime wasn't driven by passion but by selfish premeditation, a desire to avoid responsibility, start fresh with someone new, and erase his old life. In the process, he destroyed everything. Chris Watts now spends his days in a maximum security prison in Wisconsin, isolated from the world. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and unborn baby Nico rest together in North Carolina, cherished by a family who holds their memory close. Their tragic story is a chilling reminder that evil can often hide behind a familiar face, and that the most horrific acts can come from those we once trusted and loved. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime stories. Remember, stay curious and stay safe.